There's another issue that's coming up right now, the debate and a lot of talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, one of those free trade agreement type things that involves dozens of countries around the world. Whether you're for it or against it, I haven't formed a definite opinion about that. On the surface, I think I'm against it. But what really disturbs me is that this government has decided that an initiative needs to be passed. Now, every time we have some piece of legislation that's involved fast track, what's the result? We find out many months or years later what actually happened. It's another situation where you have to pass it to find out within it. And I'm wondering what the opposition is at this point with that particular legislation, that it can't be fully debated, that there shouldn't be public comments, that there shouldn't be an amendment button. This concept of fast track, we should oppose it in every circumstance short of natural disaster or act of war. Because honestly, that's what the original purpose of fast track was. And whether or not this country has the Trans-Pacific Partnership now or 3 months, 6 months, or a year from now is not going to materially hurt or help the country. This is a situation where there's stuff in there that we don't know about and they don't want us to know. So we are going to vehemently oppose fast track. And to do that, you'll hear details of that whole thing shortly. A few other people are going to discuss that. So please attention to that. It's definitely something that we have to discuss. Okay?
Curtis Ellis is going to get up and speak with us regarding the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP. I happen to adore the name of his group, ObamaTrain.com. Does that say anything about how bad this is? Curtis, thank you. Yeah, it's a train wreck, yeah, definitely, and it just won't stop. It just
is that anything like the Soul Train?
Thank you so much. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you
for inviting me. Put this away. Somebody from Washington calling me about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's really nice to be here. Thank you. You guys are great. This is what it's about. I know the work you do. I'm glad that I didn't have to follow Stephen directly because he's a tough act to follow. He's a great man, and you're great folks. And you've elected a great congressman, Lee Zeldin. Two things I want to talk about, as Stephen mentioned. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is not a Filipina mail-order bride agency. It is not Mitch McConnell's marriage to Elaine Chao. And it is not some kind of Asian escort service. Trans-Pacific Partnership is one of these so-called free trade deals, like NAFTA. Now, President Obama said he wants to pass it. And in his State of the Union address, he said, we want to pass it this year. Now, in his weekly little YouTube address that he did on Saturday, he said, I want Congress to give me the power to write the rules for the world's economy.
No megalomania here.
I'd like to see how many people think that's a good idea. Let the record show nobody raised their hand. Now, how is he going? So he's asking Congress to give him the power to write the rules of the world economy, and that's what the Trans-Pacific Partnership is. It's not free trade, it's rules for the world's economy. And what is interesting, don't forget, the United States is part of the world. So when he writes rules for the world's economy, he's writing rules for our economy. This is no longer a trade deal of how many widgets can country X export or import to country Y. These are rules that are binding on all the commerce in the world. So all the food you eat, can we have a label on our food that says grown in the USA? Or is that a restriction of trade? Because those people that are growing food in Mexico, we may not want to buy the Mexican food, but if we're telling everybody where the food's grown, well then you're discriminating against those poor Mexicans. Or you're discriminating if you don't want to buy genetically modified food, if you put a label on the food that says this is Frankenfood or this was, got chemicals in it, oh, now you're discriminating against trade in food that's, made in a chemical factory or whatever. So you may like genetically modified food, but you're not allowed to know whether it's there or not under these rules. And then it gets even beyond the food. It goes into the internet. What are you allowed to see on the internet? Like the net neutrality rules. Hillary Clinton was saying, well, other countries want to control the internet and monitor it, and we don't do that, but we have to strike the right balance. And these rules will be written into this agreement. And all the energy that's produced and consumed, it'll affect that as well. So these are the rules for the world economy, and it's not just about stuff that crosses borders anymore. It's about stuff that happens. Every law in the United States will have to conform to these rules that are written by Obama and his people. But why do we say just written by Obama? And that's where fast track comes in. He is asking Congress to give him what we call fast track, what's known colloquially as fast track, but in Washington they came up with a clever name called Trade Promotion Authority. Trade Promotion Authority. I'm asking Congress to give me Trade Promotion Authority. What does that mean? These are the rules. This is what it really means, no exaggeration. Under Trade Promotion Authority, his agreement of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, when it comes before Congress, will be after he has signed it, and then when it comes to Congress, Congress cannot amend one word of it. That's a very good question. They get an up or down vote. This is many thousands of pages, written in the densest legal language. It makes normal legislation like Obamacare look like a first grade primer. This is like super specialized legal language of international trade negotiation language. It is very dense. Now, Congress has not seen it. This has been negotiated in secret. Congressmen have to make an appointment to go into a sealed room on the other side of the national capitol. They're not allowed to take notes, and they're not allowed to bring a staff. Now,
Just have to send Sandy.
they're not allowed to bring their expert staff with them. It's like, you can see those x-rays we took of your MRI, but you're not allowed to talk to a doctor about it. You're going to have to figure it out for yourself what this means. I'll tell you, I've worked for members of Congress. They're good people, some of them. They rely on their staff. This is highly technical language. What do we send people to college for, Well, let's not get into that discussion. But, so they haven't seen it. They have to go there. They can't bring their staff. They can't take notes. When it does come before Congress, after the president signed it, it'll be under limited debate. This is what fast track means, what Trade Promotion Authority means. Limited hours of debate. The White House actually takes control of the House floor agenda. The majority loses control of the agenda. The president tells them when they have to vote on it, under limited hours of debate. There will be no filibuster, no 60-vote cloture in the Senate. When it does finally come up for a vote, it'll be a 51-vote majority, simple majority, no two-thirds majority like treaties. Simple majority, no amendments allowed, no committee hearings, no light of day. It literally is, you have to pass it and find out what's in it. Yes,
The
sir.
question is, there any precedents for this in our history, maybe in wartime or whatever?
Yes. Fast track has been used. Now here's the way.
In that specific step-by-step
Yes.
that you laid out.
Yes, but it's been perverted this time even further. Fast track has been used, and the proponents will say, oh, every president since Franklin Roosevelt has had fast track. But you see, if you go to the Congressional Research Service, it actually was written first time by Richard Nixon. He came up with this idea. And the idea was, well, the negotiations are now involving many countries, and so we have to have an expedited process because we can't be negotiating with 535 members of Congress. To which I say, well, sure, a dictatorship would be a lot easier on a lot of counts if you got rid of Congress, but that's the way it's supposed to work is before the negotiation. Oh, I forgot to mention, these negotiations for this Trans-Pacific Partnership have been going on for 6 years. And everybody says, the president, the trade negotiator, Orrin Hatch, John Boehner, Paul Ryan, who's a cheerleader for this whole thing, say it's going to be wrapped up in March. It's going to be wrapped up in a week, 2 weeks. 6 years it's been going on. Now the way fast track is supposed to work, the way it was designed to work, before the negotiations begin, Congress holds hearings and decides who we should be negotiating with, what we want to negotiate, and what are the goals of this trade agreement. Do we want to negotiate, make sure that we get more cars from Japan or fewer cars from Japan, or that our wheat can be sold overseas, or that our Tyson's chickens get a better deal when they are sent to China, or who are the countries we should be negotiating with that share our values, that are not going to undercut our workers by bringing in either tainted products or cheap labor and undercut our own industries. Or that, a good example, countries that don't respect religious freedom, that practice Sharia law, that are ruled by communist dictatorships, they're all in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, before these negotiations began 6 years ago, the president was supposed to come to Congress and say, let's talk about who we're going to be negotiating with, and let's talk about what we're going to negotiate. What are the goals of this trade agreement? Because it says, Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, Congress shall regulate commerce with foreign nations. In a word, trade. Congress is supposed to do that. The very first act of Congress, 1789, was a tariff act that regulated commerce with foreign nations. The very first act of Congress. In 1970s, Congress passed the Jackson-Vanik Act. Jackson-Vanik said, we will not have most favored nation trade privileges given to any country that violates the rights of its citizens, that will not let the Jews go to Israel, will not let the Christians leave Russia. They cannot get most favored nation status. Now we have a man who wants to write the rules for the world economy and give most favored nation status to a country that is ruled by Sharia law, that beheads Christians, another country that forces Christians to convert to Islam, that bans the Bible, and Congress was not even asked about it. And when he finally does write these rules and brings it to Congress under the rules of Trade Promotion Authority, Congress can't say, well, we like all this part, but how about leaving out the Sharia law country? They won't be allowed to do that. So,
And I'm sorry, did
Yeah.
you say Paul Ryan is on board with this?
yes. Paul Ryan was just over in Malaysia this past weekend saying, let's get this done now. Paul Ryan, you're going to have to ask him why he thinks this is a good idea. It's unfortunate,
Is this going to happen, or is there a chance that it's
and I'm glad you asked, because here's the thing, we can stop this. Paul Ryan is alone. He's not alone. He's got John Boehner, and he's got Mitch McConnell on his side.
That's 3 men in a room. Nobody's down in D.C.
Yeah, Shelley's under indictment, so he couldn't be in the room, otherwise it'd be 4 men in the room.
Gallows will be with him soon.
So yeah, first thing McConnell said when he got, when we gave him the majority leader job, he said, we've got to show that we can govern. I know of an area that I can work with the president on, and that's trade. That's the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We can get this Trade Promotion Authority done, get it done real quick. Paul Ryan is chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. This is considered a revenue bill because it affects tariffs very marginally. And so it falls under his jurisdiction, and he gets his marching orders, like many of these guys in Washington, from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, same people you may recall declared war on the Tea Party. And they want this. Because, let me just say, for this Trans-Pacific Partnership is the other side of the immigration coin. Whether we erase our borders so we can bring cheap labor in, uncontrolled, unrestricted, or we erase our economic borders so that we are still at the same boat, that we, American workers, are being pitted against cheap labor, whether it's down the street or on the other side of the world. As far as these U.S. Chamber of Commerce is really the multinational Chamber of Commerce, as far as they're concerned, they've said this, it's on the record, going back to 1967, Joint Economic Committee of Congress, we have got to eliminate borders and eliminate sovereign nations so that corporations can freely get resources anywhere in the world, find the best deal on labor, the best resources, and they won't be restricted by parochial things like nations. So that's but you'll have to ask Paul Ryan why he thinks this is a good idea. So we can stop it though. There's how. Right now, there's a letter being circulated in the House of, it's going to stop in the House of Representatives. The Senate's gone. Senate, most of those people are so, yeah. They've been bought many times over. But the House is a different case. There are a lot of people like Lee Zeldin, there are a lot of good conservatives in the House of Representatives, and you say to them, like the Chamber of Commerce is saying to them, all right, let's give the president more power. Let's strip you of the ability to amend what he does. And they're going to say, I don't think so. But they need to hear from us. Right now there's a letter being circulated among the GOP freshman class asking them to join in giving the president this trade promotion authority. I've been working with people. We have that call, it was coming in right before I got here. I have a lobbyist working on Capitol Hill now, talking to the conservatives saying, this is not a good idea. We've got people visiting the halls of Congress, grassroots groups from across the country, Americans for Limited Government, the American Family Association, the Eagle, Phyllis Schlafly's outfit. They're all been hammering on the Republican conference, do not give the president fast-track trade promotion authority. I'm going to ask everybody here, this is what needs to happen. Tomorrow, call Lee Zeldin's office. The number is 202, I'll repeat this a few times.
Don't call tomorrow, we have been busy with HR 5.
One call, it'll take 5 minutes. 202-225-3826.
Just a little input. I called up Lee when I spoke with him today. I said, okay, you're calling about HR 5 now. What? By the way, net neutrality. By the way. In other words, I got your ear. You stuck with me for 3 more minutes. Hit him on all of them. Lee can multitask. Okay, Zeldin's got the ability to multitask and say, okay, that one I got to put here, that one I got to put there, and then pull him back down and talk about him.
If you can get to, you're great. You got to spoke with Lee himself.
So, we're part of the people, a lot of us are the people
Exactly.
who work very hard to get Lee and several other people
Yes.
in the office.
God bless you.
Reaching back and listening, and he does listen, so.
And you say, we oppose this trade promotion authority. And you know how to talk to him. I hope you do too. Tell me,
Pretty simple. If Obama's for it, we're against it.
Yeah. That's right. And he's not alone. Steve Russell, freshman congressman from Oklahoma.
You guys know Steve Russell.
Steve Russell, a good man. His unit helped capture Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
Well, Obama did that. I'm sorry,
He's against Trade Promotion Authority. He's going to be writing a piece that's going to come out in the paper in the Hill, in one of the Beltway trade papers. I mean, you know, inside the Beltway Commerce papers. Lee won't be alone. He'll be there with another combat vet opposing this. And there are plenty of others. This letter being circulated to give Obama Trade Promotion Authority is not getting a lot of people signing on. There's a lot of pushback. I saw a letter from a man, one of the leadership whips, one of the guys who's supposed to be whipping votes for this. And he's saying, I don't like the idea. I'm at best undecided. I have serious reservations. Now, when the other side can't even get their hired guns to want to pick up the gun and load it to go whip other people in line, you know they're in trouble. We need to give that extra push and let Lee know that, you know, not a good idea to give Obama more power. Look, I just don't remember seeing the ads for Lee or for any of the other Republicans. I don't remember seeing their ads saying, elect me and I'll give Obama more power. That's why you should vote Republican this year.
What about Congressman King?
he loves it.
He's a lost
Yeah,
cause.
just call him too if that's your congressman.
Even if it's not your congressman, call them. It doesn't matter that it's not. If they ask you where you live,
King's gonna be for it though.
your friends.
King's going to be for it,
Listen now.
King's for it.
but if they
They're
can't
not
round up
taking
enough
you-
yes
they're not
votes, they're never
checking
going to
you.
bring
Give an
the
address
darn
in
thing
their
to the
area,
floor
that's
for a
all
vote.
that matters. But call them.
King's a
Back
big
again, give
chamber
them
of
another
commerce.
address.
That's
Block.
how we defeat it. I don't necessarily need the showdown in the OK Corral. If they never show up at the OK Corral, that's a victory for us.
We've talked about this
That will
before.
point.
You have to understand, 6, 7 calls in a day is like the sky is falling in.
That's
I'm
right.
not kidding. Yes.
It's true. You're
I am not
exactly
kidding
right.
you.
I worked in the
Congressman's
congressional
office,
office.
you get
When that
12
phone starts
calls in one
ringing,
day, they are going out of their minds. They don't know what to do with you. So you call, and your friend call, and your husband call, and your wife, and you get the whole little gang to keep calling, calling. And if you do that for 1 or 2 days, you give them a dozen calls, they'll lose their minds.
That's right. Now, if they say
You guys don't
Lee's
believe
not
us?
available, you know, you can ask for the trade LA. LA is legislative assistant. I'd like to talk to the trade LA. If you can't get it, Lee's the best.
We'll ask
Talk
for
to
Eric
the
then.
congressman, nothing
You
like
need to
it.
call a
Keep the
local
staff.
office right here, where you know how to get there to work the campaign. That's the number you call. Judy, got it? 'Cause I don't-
All right, the local office is 631-289-1097. DC office is 202-225-3826. At the same time, you can ask them about the other piece of legislation. Remember, multitask.
That's right. Well, that's about what
And when you
Yeah,
call,
but net neutrality ain't legislation.
make sure they take your name and your address,
Yep.
and make sure that they get the message to the congressman, and then get their name,
Yeah.
Important issue.
okay? This is really
CS
important, do it that way.
sorry.
And then get off the phone, and then have your husband call, then you have your mother call, you have your neighbor call, you have your kid call. And before you know it, they've got 2 dozen calls, and they're losing their mind.
They are losing their mind. That'll stop them in their
Not
tracks.
only that, but you could, one person, I've done this, call, if they have several offices, call
Every
them all.
office,
Because
yeah.
they don't always compare notes.
That is very true.
Members of CSA can call Zeldin and say you're a member of CSA, okay? Lee is our congressman. I don't mean to say silly when I go quote, quote, but he's like our congressman. He's been a friend of the organization since the beginning. He's come before us many, many more times than I can admit to, so he's one of us, so.
Even if
He's
you're
a
not.
smart guy. He knows that you got him elected. He knows that each one of you talk to 10 people.
Yeah.
You go out, you probably,
He
door
won't get
knocking
the
time, you
message.
block out more than 10 doors.
Lee will not get the message until the staff feels that it's an issue. It will not be an issue until they're answering the phone a couple of times over and over. And they're going, gee, are you getting calls in Italian? What the hell's going on here? And that's how it gets reelected. Trust me.
DC phone number again is
And that goes for King's.
225-3826. Local office 631-289-1097. 1097.
Peter King's also?
Do you have Peter King's number, Judy?
I don't put that in my phone.
Your phone rejects it.
Excuse me, I used to live in this district, he's not in my phone.
Kathy, we have Pete King's number.
Oh, thank you, Mary.
I will send it out to everybody, trust me.
Quick question, what's the timeline?
Okay, good, thank you. They wanted to have this legislation introduced this week, but they're having such a hard time because of the work that people like you are doing all over the country. They've slowed it down. Now they hope to get it done next week.
Yeah.
And they want to get this bill passed in March. Yeah. Paul Ryan
March is
was,
Sunday.
yeah, and March is Sunday.
At 3 o'clock in the
So,
morning.
In the morning.
Yeah,
That's
3 in the
going to
morning.
be twisting
yeah.
arms, so yeah, this is now. That's why I asked everybody to call tomorrow. We slow this down, the longer, time is our friend on this one. The longer this waits, it doesn't get done, because we're not alone on this. Poll after poll after poll shows the American people, in ridiculous numbers, like 80%, oppose these kind of treaties. They oppose these kind of agreements. But you flip it and you look, they polled us, one poll by Pew Research, they polled the American people, Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, Tea Party, independents, everything. 80 to 20 against it, think these hurt our jobs, hurt the country. Then they polled, and I'm not making this up, members of the Council on Foreign Relations, which is the definition of an elite organization. The numbers were exactly opposite. 80% thought it's a good thing, and 20% said it was wrong.
Did they poll the Muslim Brotherhood?
Yeah. So, the Chinese, exactly. China's already investing billions in Vietnam, one of the Trans-Pacific Partnership countries, which they will then use as a transshipment platform to ship more stuff into our country. Tariff-free, duty-free, no taxes. It sounds incredible, but it's not. It's like, yeah, Paul. Yes, sir.
Question, maybe you know that. Is there any provision in this that we, if it does pass, that we might sometime down the line be paying a world tax?
Well, what it does is the rules that are set up in here, something pretty close to that. The rules that it's established, I want to write the rules for the world's economy. Well, who adjudicates the rules? How do you know if people are following the rules? Or if I don't think they're following the rules, where do I go?
World
Do I go
Court.
to U.S. federal court? No. It sets up...
Go to The Hague.
You go to The Hague, you go to the UN, you go to Brussels, you go to Geneva. It sets up these international tribunals that will enforce these rules. Now, any let's say a Chinese corporation incorporated in Vietnam can bring an action in front of these world court outfits and say, you know, we opened a factory or we wanted to sell something in the U.S. and there's got some pesky rule in New York State that, you know, interferes with our ability to sell stuff. And we want to sue for $100 million worth of damages. They would go before one of these world international tribunals, which are staffed by unelected, God knows who, right? We don't elect them. They don't, not picked by our Congress. And that court would rule this company is now entitled to $100 million. And whose pocket does that come out of?
Back to your wallet, Jan.
Yeah.
It goes back to your wallet, because that's coming out of our taxpayer dollars.
This is no exaggeration. This is real. And there's a reason, I'd like to say there's a reason, without sounding like some person who's like delusional. There's a reason they don't talk about this on TV. You don't have them.
They do talk about it on TV, and I'll tell you where they're talking about it
Where?
on TV. They're talking about it on, whatchamacallit, about, it's our problem that they don't have any jobs over in.
There
That's
you
the whole
go.
thing. Oh, they got no employment.
That's a job for jihadis. A job for
Set it
jihadis.
up for this.
Yeah, that's right.
The
Exactly.
State Department's been talking about
that, Maria Barth, her.
Did you discuss the 29 chapters?
No.
All right, from what I've read, okay, and as I said, my head has been exploding from this, it was days of insanity. There are 29 chapters to this trade agreement. 5 of them are relegated down to trade agreements. There's a bit of a disparity number from 5 to 29 that's missing, and these are, nobody knows about it.
Well, that's the rules for the world
Okay, those are the
economy.
rules for the world economy,
That's right.
exactly.
5 chapters are, well, if you sell something in here, there's going to be a 10% tariff at the border. If we sell over there, you got to get rid of that tariff on our rice that we want to sell in Japan. How many cars can you bring in? How many shoes? See, Vietnam wants to be the world supplier of shoes now. Put New Balance, their factories up in Maine, they'll be shut down because Vietnam will be making all the shoes that they're selling. But that's only 5 chapters. The other 24 chapters of this agreement deal with the internet, copyright. So the way it would work, your internet service provider would be required to monitor all of the internet activity. And then if Disney or Hollywood, some Hollywood corporation says, well, there's something on that website that we say violates our copyright, the internet service provider would have to black out that website before a court says it actually is a violation of copyright.
Where are the businesses? Where's the
Okay, well, hold on, there's another side to this. There's 151 Democratic congressmen that have signed a letter saying they are against this. Oh, yeah, well, in addition to that, that was another one of the crazy phone calls that I got 2 weeks ago. I got a phone call from a gentleman from a specific union that he used to stand on that side of the road during Obamacare, and we stood on this side of the road. He goes, we need to talk on this issue. And by the way, and he actually said this, across the heart, okay, lightning strike. He said, regarding Obamacare, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm ready, come on, bring it on. He said, and I quote, I wish we had a little bit more insight as to what was going on. Let me tell you, when I got off the phone, I happy danced. I'm like, yeah. Like a lunatic. I was there. I said, he goes, I don't want to hear when I told you so. I said, that's not necessary. The unions are being attacked in 2016 by Obamacare. But remember, we had to pass it before we could see what was in it. And you guys got just as screwed as everybody else. But I mean, the point that I'm trying to make is myself, Adam, I'm hoping that that's Adam coming in the door right now. That is Adam. He came in from train from the city and around the bend and up around the corner, so he got a bit of traveling to do. But Adam, myself, this union individual, and several other individuals, all, and I'm not putting Adam, hello honey, I'm not putting him on the left, I'm meaning the people, the other people, we're over there during Obamacare. We're standing side by side. I asked permission, I'm going to be sharing with everybody their flyers. They're beautiful marketing pieces. They filled out a lot of those holes that I was like, did they really, holy crap, they really did, oh my God, they really did, because I'm reading here and I'm going, no, that's not true. Oh my God, it's true. So there's a lot of different things going on. So there's a huge issue here. And when I talk about the aligning of the stars of different groups, this is an amazing one, and it's scary. It's like Common Core. We got teachers, we got parents, people that never even got involved with this stuff, standing together to fight on it. So there's a lot of good things happening. But I'm going to be sitting with and discussing with. We actually communicate regularly on the phone, Michael and I kind of giggle every time I hang up the phone going, wow. So bear it in mind, there's a lot of stars aligning on this. I'm waiting. Adam was going to try, and also you were trying to get me a list of the Republicans that are for it. It's not really out yet. Everything is still hidden.
Yeah.
If we
Still
stop,
in flux. It's very much in flux.
fast track, then we have now cut them out at the knees, because now they really have to go through the full examination, because then the whole legislation is going to have to be put down in public to everybody.
If you have a world economy, you're going to have a world standard of living. You're going to have a world minimum wage. And guess what can happen to ours? It's going to come down.
You talked about We don't know who's on which side as of yet. And again, it's very important to affect the change and make those phone calls before they're announced.
Exactly.
Whether they're for it or not.
Exactly.
Because once they announce that they are for it, or it's very hard for them to then walk that back. So if they get beaten up early,
Yep.
make their decision. Once they've committed, it's very, very hard for them to change their minds. They
We have a list of
they have
folks
to
who-
really come up to speed, and they don't. They just don't do it. So affect the change early and often and firmly.
We have a list of folks who have not publicly announced they're against it, but have assured us they're against it. We have another list of people who will not commit to being for it, and that's good. You know, that's a beginning, because just like you said, once they go out publicly and say, yeah, we're for it, then it's hard for them to walk back off that ledge.
They can't wait.
Those lists, well, my lobbyist doesn't even share them with me, you know, but once I do get them and have names, I'll be happy to circulate them. Let me tell you a funny story. There's a guy, and this just happened tonight, right before I came up here. So Tom Emmer, Representative Tom Emmer of Minnesota, it was written in the press, and then I got a copy of the letter that he is circulating among Republican freshmen, he's a Republican freshman, asking them to give Obama trade promotion authority, right? And it's signed, it's on his letterhead, signed letter. So we got a hold of that. One of the other freshman Republicans provided us this letter being circulated on Capitol Hill, trying to get other people to sign on to it. They gave it to us. I gave it to the Americans for Limited Government. Americans for Limited Government wrote a letter searing his short hairs, saying things like, well, there seems to be a misconception that Trade Promotion Authority will allow Congress to set objectives for negotiations. As you undoubtedly are aware, the negotiations have been ongoing for the past 6 years. And the U.S. Trade Representative testified earlier that they will be wrapping up in March. Given that the U.S. Trade Representative testified before Senate that he is disregarding a letter signed by a majority of the House urging the currency manipulation be included, it's clear that Obama has no more regard for congressional input in this area than he's shown on immigration. And it goes on and on from there. This letter was distributed to every Republican in the House of Representatives, sent to the media, and it's living on the website of Americans for Limited Government. They got a call from Congressman Emmer saying, his chief of staff saying, I never signed that letter. What?
Yeah, so who got hold of the letter?
Well, who checked it out? Yeah, right, exactly. So these people are cowards. They thought this was going to be a cakewalk. You know, we got the Chamber of Commerce, we got the Fortune 50. No one's going to be opposed to this. Once those Minutemen showed up on Concord Free, these guys ran the other way.
Yellow streaks run big and wide in DC.
Yeah.
What I'd love to do is, if you don't mind, get Adam up. Adam just came in.
Quick question.
This is a very quick question.
Go ahead, no, well-
Just to,
Obamacare, and you like it.
And when you have this world government, when you have this world economy, and you've got these world courts over there in Geneva, if you don't like the regulations they're writing,
Too bad.
who do you go to? You can't even call Albany. You can't call your congressman anymore. It's all taken out of their hands.
Curtis, thank you. Adam, like training cab and probably somebody including.
More all of this stuff's in the back of the room. Take as much as you want.
Holistic, cool. Careful on the ice. So this is Adam Weissman. He is with TradeJustice.net, another organization. He and I, plus the guys with the union, are going to be meeting with Lee Zeldin and a bunch of other people. So FYI, let him get some info out.
So just a little bit about us. Trade Justice is a coalition of organizations whose common ground is really recognizing that this NAFTA, CAFTA, WTO, TPP free trade agenda is a rotten deal. We talk to everyone. We meet with Move On and we meet with John Birchers. We were at the first Tea Party rally and we were at Occupy Wall Street. We'll talk to anyone who will listen. And the one thing that we find is while half the people we talk to may not agree on anything else, the one thing is if you talk to anyone with maybe 2 working brain cells, which excludes most of Congress, granted, but for 5 minutes they'll get that this is a bad idea. They may disagree on fracking, and they may disagree on Obamacare, and they may disagree on anything else, but on a certain level they think having a constitution is actually a pretty good idea. So I just want to talk a little bit about really this free trade, first of all just this free trade snake oil in particular, and how really we've been sold the idea that free trade is the American way, when really that is just a complete misunderstanding of our history and how this country was built. A term that we should all know is the American system. Note that it's not the global system or the international system, it's the American system. The American system was how this country was built. It was how this country became a global industrial power. This was Alexander Hamilton's idea. This is the idea of a country that built its industrial base through high tariffs, through focusing on not on importing lots of stuff, but on actually being able to make stuff ourselves in our own country. Not necessarily welcoming in everything else so easily, and actually building our national economic base and financing our government through tariffs. Something that a lot of people don't know. The committees that deal with trade in the House and the Senate are the Senate Finance Committee and the Ways and Means Committee. Now that sounds strange. What do those have to do with trade? Ways and Means is supposed to be about, and finance is supposed to be about revenue. Well, to understand that, you have to understand the history of how tariffs were viewed when this country started. Our federal government was supposed to be paid for on tariffs on imported goods. That did 2 things. First of all, it gave us an incentive to buy stuff made in the USA because it was cheaper. And the second thing was it paid for our government. Well, a year that should be the darkest date in U.S. history for all conservatives is 1913. What happened in 1913? Well, in 1913, we decided it would be a great idea to get rid of tariffs, or to lower tariffs. And what did we replace them with? Anyone? Federal income tax. That was the first time, well, when we had a federal income tax in peacetime that was not immediately challenged by the courts and thrown away. So free trade we can thank for the fact that we have a federal income tax. Now, when you have a government that is financed by tariffs, that is a self-regulating system that guarantees small government. And here's why. When you're paying for things with tariffs, there's a problem. If you try to finance things by putting tariffs too high, well, for one thing, there's an upside to it, which is it means more economic growth in terms of actually making things in the country. But at a certain point, if you raise your tariffs too high, everyone else does the same to you, and you can't export anything. And obviously, you're not going to build an economy without exports. So there's a regulatory mechanism there. You drive the tariffs up too high, you can't send anything out of the country, and so that keeps tariffs at a certain level, and that keeps government at a certain size when that's how you're paying for things, when you're not paying for things with a federal income tax. So our out of control ballooning government is big. You can always raise an income tax. What does that do? When you raise an income tax, you can always raise corporate taxes. What you're doing by doing both of those things, by raising income taxes and by raising corporate taxes, by making it cost more to do things in the United States, when when corporations have to pay more to do things here, and then you're getting rid of the tariffs to make things somewhere else. Well, gee, if I'm going to make things in the U.S. and I have to respect environmental laws, and I have to respect labor laws, and there's a minimum wage, and there's unions, what if I can make things in Vietnam, where I can pay workers a penny a day, and if we don't like what the workers are doing, we can feed them, and there's no environmental laws. Why the hell would I make things in the U.S.? Well, what is the incentive for me there? I would be a bad corporate executive. I would be fired from my job. Well, that's really what free trade is. And that's really, so free trade is not, it never has benefited U.S. workers. And Barack Obama understands that, to be sure. I think the degree to which they're just at this point lying about this fact is pretty remarkable. And I apologize if Kurt has mentioned some of these points already, but the U.S.-Korea trade agreement, which went into effect 2 years ago, already cost us 60,000 jobs. It's ballooned our federal trade deficit. Obama passed this thing, promised it would be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so now he's coming back and telling us, oh, well, TPP is going to give us 500,000 new jobs, according to the Peterson Institute. Yeah, well, the Washington Post, not exactly a big enemy of the Obama administration, and not a big enemy of free trade either. The Washington Post gave Obama 4 Pinocchio noses for the 500,000 jobs. Anyone want to guess how many jobs he said it would create? Rhymes? Yeah, none, 0. A big goose egg. Now, and that's actually pretty optimistic because it's not just going to not create jobs; it's going to kill jobs. NAFTA cost the U.S. 1 million jobs. NAFTA, and people hear more about NAFTA. You know what we don't hear as much about? China PNTR, permanent normalization of trade relations with China. That cost us 2.7 million jobs. Well, supposedly TPP is all about reining in China. TPP, well, China's, we have to discipline China, and we build a block around China. We'll box China in. Yeah, that worked well. That worked really well when we brought China into the WTO. Well, gee, China's not, eating our whole economy ever since then. That worked really well when we normalized trade relations with China. So basically, we're just going to, what's the thing about insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So that's exactly the game that's being played here. The one thing that actually, and I think Curtis mentioned this, the one thing that actually we can do that would address this, in terms of fixing some of these problems with China, fixing currency manipulation, the Obama administration won't even talk about it. Michael Froman, the U.S. Trade Representative, when Chuck Schumer's actually on the right side of that particular issue. On the currency thing, he gets it. For when Schumer pushes him on that, he basically blows him off. I mean, we're not going to do anything about that. We don't care about that. So they're not going to do the one thing that actually could fix the problem. So what exactly is the point of this trade agreement? If it's not going to create jobs, if it's not going to fix the issue, if it's not going to fix currency manipulation, what are they trying to get out of it? It's a very good question. I mean, personally, I think you could lay down all kinds of theories as to what Obama's real agenda is. The fact that he has a 29-chapter agreement, 5 of which only deal with trade, and 24 of which are being negotiated in secret, with members of Congress having limited access to the negotiating text, with you and me completely restricted from seeing it, with a trade agreement for the first time in history classified and treated as national security classified documents. Well, gee, I don't know. If I just got killed in Congress, and I have no political power anymore, I might want to hide my entire agenda in 24 chapters of a trade agreement too, and then send it back to Congress under rules under which they can't change a letter or comma of it. And I might be pretty delighted if Paul Ryan was going to carry water for me on this review.
It's enough to make me sick.
It really is. I mean, it's and I really feel like we're talking about things we need to do. I think if there's one message that needs to get out there nationally, it's to Paul Ryan: if you put the crown on Obama here, which is exactly what you're doing, forget about ever running in a Republican presidential primary. And take a good look at Eric Cantor, because that's your future if you do this. So I think that at the national level, that's where the focus needs to be. Orrin Hatch's lost cause. He's like, it's already clear he's going to give Obama whatever he wants here. And where's he going? He's not running for president ever. But he has nowhere to go. Paul Ryan is a young guy, and we all know what's in the back of his mind. He needs to hear from the people who put him in power, the people who've been his base, the people who fought for him in every battle he's fought, the people who he's depended on, who now he's throwing under a bus. I don't know. Maybe he wants a cabinet position in the Hillary Clinton administration. I don't know what's something. But yeah, I mean, and so it's in terms of kind of taking it back down to the local level. We talked about Lee Zeldin. I mean, I think the message for him is this is exactly the kind of thing you were elected to fight. This is why people needed you. This is why this is the kind of thing you could. If we can't stand up to Obama on this, then what's the point? Peter King. How many people? By a show of hands, how many people think Peter King will not be Peter King on this? Will actually have a spine and break with Obama?
He doesn't have a spine.
Right. I mean, he'd have to look for it first. So I think right. So I mean, it's like a rhetorical question, basically. I think with Peter King, the thing to do is make an example of him. I mean, sure, he should be approached like anyone else. People should try to meet with him, should try to talk to him, should try to reason with him, and we all know this is going to go nowhere. But he should be. He's the perfect person to set an example for other Republican reps about what happens when you work towards making Obama the emperor of our country and our world at this point. But you know, personally, I've had this vision in the back of my head for months now of people protesting in front of King's office with someone dressing up like Peter King with a big rhino horn and putting a crown on Barack Obama's head and going like this before him and having fast track written on the crown.
We've done that. for
I mean,
safe-
the
for
message
safe
needs to get across, but that is what you're doing.
It's a great idea. Definitely get people to stop and go, what is that about? Yeah. Ray, we got a cartoon for you.
And you know, and hopefully Lee Zeldin doesn't need to see that kind of thing. I mean, hopefully Zeldin just, you know, in his heart understands that this is, you know, this is the kind of thing he was elected to fight. But there are a lot of other GOP reps who clearly are not thinking that way. I mean, the fact that Paul Ryan, you know, the fact that Paul Ryan is doing this is obviously a frightening sign. So I don't want to go on too long. Let me just see if there's other things I want to mention. But
I think Paul Ryan would be somebody we could make a better statement with. He would understand being plantarized. He would understand what that means to be made example of. Peter King doesn't care. Peter King is secure and very comfortable.
75%.
Yeah.
And these people are delusional. These mass people are trusting this right now.
I grew up in
They
Wanton.
walk in,
They are
go,
delusional.
hit that King button every time.
They don't care if he came up and shot the Pope. They'd still vote for Peter King. That's what blows my mind. So he's not even. I love the cartoon. I just love the cartoon.
Charlie Rangel's still in office. Why does this surprise you?
We'd have more fun with Ryan, respectfully.
And what's your last name?
Weissman, W-E-I-S-S-M-A-N. I mean, but that obviously doesn't have to happen nationally. I mean, he's going to have to hear from every sector of the country.
What's the name of it again?
The organization that I work with? It's Trade Justice New York Metro, and our website is tradejustice.net. We also, kind of as a side project, work on a website called ObamaShreds-the-Constitution.blogspot.com. And on the front is a picture of Obama going like this with the Constitution. So I just want to, I mean, this is really just reinforcement, but I think it pays to hear this, that some people are, you know, as depressing as all this is, that there are people who are on the right side of this issue. So this is a letter signed by about, I think, 22 Republican reps in 2013. Walter Jones and Michelle Bachmann were the kind of the lead authors, and then there were a bunch of others. It's short, but it really drives the point home. Dear President Obama, we are strong supporters of American trade expansion. We are also strong supporters of the U.S. Constitution. Imagine that. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress exclusive authority to set the terms of trade. Meanwhile, the executive branch has constitutional authority to negotiate with foreign governments on behalf of our nation. The founders established this clear check and balance to prevent the president from unilaterally negotiating with foreign nations and imposing trade policies that Congress would deem to be against the national interest. For 200 years of our nation's history, Congress has led our nation's trade policy. However, recent presidents have seized Congress's constitutional trade authority and also diplomatically legislated on numerous other matters under Congress's jurisdiction using a procedure commonly known as fast track or trade promotion authority. Under fast track, the executive branch is empowered to sign trade agreements before Congress has an opportunity to vote on them and then unilaterally write legislation making the pact's terms U.S. federal law. Fast track allows the president to send his executive branch authored bills directly to the floor for a vote under rules forbidding all floor amendments and limiting debate. And by requiring the House to vote on the bill within a preset period of time, it takes the floor schedule out of the hands of the House majority and gives it to the president. Given these factors, we do not agree to cede our constitutional authority to the executive branch through an approval of a request for fast-track trade promotion authority. Sincerely, Walter Jones, Michelle Bachmann. You know what, I'm going to read all these names.
Why is this written to the president? Why isn't this in, taken out center page or, Washington Post or New York Times or distributed to the American people? The president, what is the president going to do with that? He's going to go, wow, great.
Well, I mean, I think that's our job. I mean, I think that's
Who's signing?
Oh yeah, I think we should hear these names because these are patriots. These are people who actually are defending our country. Walter Jones, Michelle Bachmann, Dana Rohrabacher, Louis Gohmert, Paul Cook, David McKinley, John Duncan, Steve Stockman, Frank Lobiando, Rob Bishop, Chris Collins, Christopher Smith, John Mika, Terry Bedfolio. There's actually another letter by about, I think, 6 or 7 Morehouse Republicans, kind of reinforcing this one. So there's about 27 who I think have signed these letters at this point. And they deserve our thanks and our support for being willing to speak out. But
Being
it's
used as birdcage liner,
exactly. I mean,
the people who get pissed off about it.
well, it
You
has
want me to get a copy of that and share it with everybody.
and
And everybody can have a part of
Every
it.
opportunity.
and here's also a letter
Right to
to.
the point,
Yeah.
Guys, back to the speaker.
Again, CSA is completely against fast track. We will be doing a press release, and let me inform you, it's not just gonna go to regular media. I've already informed Stephen that I can't wait to sit there and start sending it to all of the different congressmen. And I'm going to also spread it throughout New York State, so the other groups and organizations, and that includes Oath Keepers, which we know are already on this, and all the other different localities and different groups, get them involved with it. So it's not just gonna be CSA, it's gonna be a coalition of all of us
and
together,
our
because this
political
is,
parties too, right, Jim?
oh, you bet your bananas they're all gonna get it.
Because they find out, election season.
They're gonna need us in a couple of weeks, so.
And another thing, I mean, in terms of why we're not hearing about this, I think one group that we have to ask that question to is where's the conservative media on this? Why?
That's not even worth discussing. We could be here for 30 years.
I mean, but I mean, we can take a role in that. People need to be calling into radio shows and asking over and over again, why are people talking about these issues? Until they can't not talk about it because they're hearing about it every day over and over and over. And it has to percolate up from the bottom.
Not a question, but rather a heads up for all of us. Rush for the last 2 days has been on a rant about government control of the internet. Much like this, fast tracking, no discussion, pass it through, we're in discussion, trust us, it's going to be okay, much like this kind of an initiative.
And yeah, I mean, a lot of that is built into this too. I mean, basically what Obama's doing here, these trade agreements are basically a dump site for legislation that you can't move otherwise. So there's a bill called the Stop Online Piracy Act, which basically, is basically the internet big brother law. And it went over like a lead balloon. Google was against it, a lot of the big companies were against it. So what they did is they just snuck it into this. And that's what they do with lots of things. They just shove all the crap into these trade agreements, negotiate them in secret negotiations. Don't let it, then send it to Congress under fast track. The old, we'll know what's in it after we vote on it. Give Congress 90 days, 20 hours of floor debate. And that's not like 20 hours, 1 day, 5. The clock starts ticking at 20 hours. Once that's done, it's done. One member of Congress estimated that for every member of the House, that means they get 88 seconds of floor debate.
Hi, Sid. Hi, Sid.
And then all they do is talk about, I yield the floor to you and yield the floor to you, and you look around and it's an empty room.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so how is this in any way a reflection of the concept of separation of powers? When this is a power that is specifically, and this is not just the general concept of separation of powers. This is written in the Constitution that this is specifically supposed to be a congressional power, not an executive power. And so, the same people who are yelling and screaming about Obama claiming too much executive authority are giving it to him.
Yeah.
Are voting to give it to him. And sorry.
We got one more question, Joe Duba.
I'll try to make it quick. You're a young guy compared to the over 39 crowd.
Oh, that was sweet, Joe.
My question, have you spoken to people younger? Like, it just seems to me that the younger people, which it's all about them, their future. I mean, we're going to get hit, but they're going to get slammed. And because of your age, I would hope that you might have like a real opportunity to try to grab.
I mean, we try. I mean, this is the future of jobs. I mean, this is the future of no jobs, really, is what this is. This is the future of decimating what little is left of the industrial sector. I mean, Ford Motor Companies scare crappers about this. They still actually make things in this country, and they know what this agreement is going to mean for them. Whatever industrial jobs are left in this country, this is really the end of that. It's the end of democracy too. It's the end of being a republic. End of having all that in one. Here's a petition.
You have it, thank you.
Yeah, this is a petition that was circulated by about a whole bunch of pages of liberty groups. To every member of Congress. So I'm going to pass this around. You can take copies. I put some other publications on the back.
all of these publications I'm gonna be getting, and I'm gonna be putting them up on the meetup. I don't know if I can attach them to an email, so you're gonna have to go, I'll give you a link to the meetup site as to where to find them all, so you can download them, because I will make PDFs on them, so they'll be up, that you can take them, print them, and rock and roll them, and roll some cages.
I know it's being late, so I'll wrap up. I just want to share two more thoughts about, the first is, I'll do the first and then hopefully I'll remember the second one. The first is, what does Obama get out of this? Why does he want it? Some of that, legacy of what? Legacy of destroying the Constitution? What a legacy that is. I mean, you can be as conspiratorial about it as you want. You can say that, this is Obama's way of giving the Communist Party of Vietnam the power to override U.S. laws. I mean, it basically is. A state-owned Vietnamese company can sue the United States in an international tribunal and have our laws declared illegal. Or the Sharia Sultanate of Brunei. There's a lot of ways you can look at it. I mean, I don't think it's about that. Frankly, I disagree with a lot of people because I never believed Obama is an ideologue. I don't give him enough credit. I think he's just a charlatan, and I think he's a huckster, and I think he's in it for himself. I don't think, if he was a socialist, that would mean he actually believed something. I don't give him enough credit to have a belief. So I think what this is basically about, Obama spent a lot of money getting elected. There are a lot of narrow special interests who are going to benefit from specific pieces of this agreement, like Hollywood, which loves backing Democrats and loves some of these intellectual property rules that are built into this trade deal to keep people from copying movies and stuff. So they're going to turn your computer into something that they own. That there are rules built into this about how they can share your information and all your privacy is out the window to ensure more money for those companies. And so this is Obama's way of paying back his patrons and also sending the message to them that yes, please support Hillary because we'll keep doing the job for you.
Yeah, but you can do this solo. This is more of an insurance candidate, I think. I just don't believe it. He's just not that bright.
He's a pretty dim bulb,
This goes back a long way.
Absolutely. I don't think he made this up. He's just doing what he's told.
Back to pre-Wilson days, and he wasn't even alive then, so I think,
No, he's just doing what he's told. Oh yeah, okay.
All right, we done?
What is it, and just a thought about the political ramifications of this fight and why this is a fight that conservatives need to engage, not only just because of the merit of its own fight, but because of its strategic value in terms of what it means for the Obama administration. I want to share with you something that happened to me last night that I think we're going to have people's jaws drop. So remember I said we talked to everyone, we talked to the left, we talked to the right. I was on a national conference call planning calls about there's a group of basically liberal groups that do national conference calls about fast track and TPP. They're against them. And it's people like Move On and Progressive Democrats of America. Everyone be seated, because you're going to need to sit when you hear this. So they're coming up with speakers on the call. People they want to have speak. You want to know who some of the names they mentioned were? We need Colonel Allen West to speak on this call. We need Michelle Bachmann. We need Alan Keyes. They get it. I mean, they get that Obama. They get that Obama's a traitor. I mean, they get that. At a certain point, when the guy that you've trusted for all these years is selling the country out the river, at a certain point, you start thinking, gee, maybe we need to listen to someone else. Not to say that they necessarily are going to agree with those people and everything, but clearly, they saw something about Obama that they didn't. So, I mean, Obama's shattering his own coalition on this. He's ripping apart his base. He's losing the trust of the people who supported him. And if Republicans hand this to him, then he's set. I mean, then it just happens.
And Hillary just steps back and watches it all happen and falls into place and doesn't have to commit one way or the other.
If Republicans fold their arms on this, then that means Obama has to shake his Democrats. And then that means it's Obama pushing his Democrats on one way, and his Democratic base pushing those Democrats the other way. And then we're in a very interesting situation where it's Obama versus the Democratic Party. And then he has no one. And he has no one behind him. The Republicans aren't going to give him anything. The Democrats aren't going to give him anything because he's trying to steamroll them too. And their base is behind them, not him. So basically he's done as a president then. And then it's just a waiting game.
Vetoes like crazy.
Well, there's that. Well, he'll keep squelching stuff, but he won't be able to get it.
Yeah, but you know what? It doesn't matter. He has nothing to lose and he has a phone and a pen. And he's getting everything he wants done just by doing it.
Damage is done. Damage is done. And what do we have on our side?
You're casting light on a very important dynamic which is shaking out in this country over the past maybe 6 years, which is the president wants this, the Republican leadership wants this. What is this fight about? It's about the people versus the elites. And that's why you're seeing these liberal, progressive, extreme leftist groups lining up against this thing, just like you're seeing us lining up against this, because they don't want it. For whatever crackpot reasons they don't want it, they don't want it. They want to bring about a new world order on their terms. We don't want it because we're concerned about individual liberty. It's us on the ground versus these leadership types who want to cement in their legacy or get praised for carrying the leader's water. And so I think that's why we're seeing this. And maybe they do want to get him on the phone and butcher him afterwards. But those are the details that we have to both work around, but build these coalitions where we can. Because we can get together and kill this, and then fight another day on one of those issues.
Fast track's gonna be the way to stop this. Once we get fast track stopped, then the bill comes out into the light. Then we have a chance to fight it.